When I started this podcast, I knew I wanted to host an astrologer as a guest. I've been into astrology from a young age and then recently dove deeper into it about 2 years ago. Astrology has helped me better understand myself in many ways, and I'm hoping this episode will do the same for listeners. My guest today is a professional astrologer and licensed clinical social worker. She blends astrology and mental health in her practice to provide a holistic healing experience to her clients. She is currently venturing out to teaching astrology on social media and podcasting to share this wisdom with a larger audience. Please welcome Lauren to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy. My sister is also here with me in studio, so welcome China as well. And so when I first started this podcast, I actually was telling her I want an astrologer. I want an astrology episode because getting to where I am in life with starting this podcast and just everything, my pivot, all of it. I feel like astrology led me to here. So I've been ready for this to share with everybody, and I'm so glad it's you because I've been following you on TikTok for a long time now, and I am so excited.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm excited to share your journey because I don't know you really well. And so I'm excited to share with you how I see your transition and how astrology can really guide us into our purpose in life.
I love it. I love that. So you are a licensed clinical social worker. And I think it's so unique that wonderful that you've decided to implement astrology into that and into your practice. And so did you do that from the beginning, or is astrology something that you eventually decided to marry together with your practice?
Actually, my therapist introduced it to me. So I
Wow.
was always going to be a therapist. At 12 years old, I was like, I'm going to be a therapist because my brothers had mental health issues, which is just wild. I knew kind of my route. And so I was in my master's program going to therapy just to make sure I'm dealing with my own stuff right before I helped others. And my therapist was like, I think you should get your birth chart read. She was like, I see themes in your life that I think would come out in a chart reading. I do this with some of my clients. I sit in with you, and then we'll use it to unpack things. And ever since that session, I promised myself I'm going to do this for my clients because it was the first time I felt seen by someone who didn't know me, like my deep insecurities, my shadows, but also my biggest strengths. And I was like, if I could do this in sessions with people, the healing, the support would just be so much quicker in a way because it bypasses a lot of the ego and the defense mechanisms. So it was almost the same time during my master's. They kind of just came to head together.
Oh, wow. Okay. I love that. Like I said, I think it's wonderful because so many times, I've been through therapy and I've been thinking during the session at some point that if we had astrology in this, I feel like I could explain myself better because luckily I grew up in a household, my mom was very into astrology. And so I've kind of learned it from a young age, which I think helped me in adult life because it was I understood things about myself that maybe not everyone understands about themselves if they don't know about astrology. So I am grateful for that. And then when I saw that you kind of did both, I think that's what originally drew me to you in the first place on TikTok. Because I was like, whoa, okay, this is kind of what I've been talking about here. Therapy mixed with astrology. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I want to talk about birth chart a little bit because I think learning my birth chart was huge for me. I had an astrologer explain it to me, which I think if you are somebody that's interested in having your birth chart read, that is huge. You definitely would benefit from an astrologer explaining it to you because if you just look at your birth chart and you have no idea about anything, you're like, what am I looking at? This is some weird pizza pie.
It's truly a language.
Yes. So can you explain birth charts a little bit? And also specifically your big three and why it's important to know not only your birth chart, but those three specifically.
Your birth chart in astrology, your natal birth chart is based off the exact time you were born, the location and the date, because that's where the stars were. And when you're born, think about you chose that time because you're going to be the talisman of that energy for the rest of your life. It's fixed energy that's never going to change. And your birth chart tells you where your soul came from, regarding past lives, past karma, and what you're bringing into this life and where your soul really wants to grow in this lifetime. And so it can give you a snapshot of what's going to fulfill you, what you might even struggle with this in this lifetime as well. And then there's other charts in astrology, like your progress chart, that explains more about the evolved version of yourself. So I really like the natal chart because it's more of a roadmap. It's very broad. It's the energy you're going to hold to understand where to go in a way. And then in astrology, if you have an astrologer, they layer a bunch of different charts during readings so you can get a full compass of who you truly are, the here and now, the struggles that are happening now, and where you're going to go later in life because of where you came from.
Can you give some examples? So I know we talked about my own birth chart, which you have. Can you give some examples for people who maybe need clarity on career or, just why they feel the way that they do in certain instances, and maybe even a little bit of partnerships and stuff like that?
Yeah. And so with career, you were a wedding photographer, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so in astrology, Venus really rules over love, and Venus rules over marriage as well when it's in Libra. Well, in astrology, the second house means income, and in your birth chart, Venus and Libra, which rules over marriage and love, are in your second house of income. So it makes a lot of sense of why you would be engaging in weddings to make money. Now, at the same time, you're transitioning because I see this a lot with clients. You have a specific thing you're doing in your life and it matches your chart, but you really want to feel fulfilled. And so you transmute your chart even bigger. And that's how I can see podcasting for you with Mercury and the sun in Leo. You're meant to be seen, and Mercury rules over your voice. You're meant to be heard in this lifetime, and it's on your sun, which means you layer the sun is what you are known for, which we can then go over the big three after that. But it's just interesting for your chart is it makes sense, like Venus, Libra, second house, wedding photographer, but then you want more from your life, and that's your sun sign. Your sun sign is going to be what you're known for. I want you to think about your sun as what your soul decided to be known for as the archetype. And Leo is known to be the creator, the actor, the performer. And so with Mercury on your sun, Mercury rules over your voice, you are known to be the creator with your voice. And so I think with the sun, when you can learn what the archetype is, that's how you know you're embodying what to be known for. Then you have your moon. That is part of the big three. The moon is your subconscious. This is how you are going to subconsciously respond to things in your lifetime. And so yours is Sagittarius. I've noticed with most people, we embody the shadow side of our moon signs in the beginning because the moon is out at night, right? And so we have to kind of learn how to use it a little bit. And Sagittarius's moon signs really love to know wisdom. They crave to be learners and teachers in this lifetime. And for you to feel emotionally fulfilled, you're going to be in a place where you can teach, but you can also learn and you can support others on their journey in life because Sagittarius is the spiritual philosopher and that's your moon sign. So for you to understand what your sun and your moon is, that creates your conscious self and your subconscious self. And then you have your rising, the last part of the big three. And the rising sign is what starts your chart. So if we pull your chart up here, it looks like a big piece of pizza, like you're saying.
Pizza pie.
Pizza pie. And one sign's going to start it because that's where the sun was on the horizon when you were born. And that is the sign that's going to get you to your sun. It is your biggest strength. It's going to be how people perceive you for sure. And in pop astrology, that's what people say. Your rising sign is the mask you wear in society. But I really see it as your biggest strength. So you're a Virgo. Because you are so great at the details of things, because you really care about the small things and making sure they're pure for you, that's going to allow you to get to your sun in Leo. That's going to be allowed you to let your podcast grow and get big because of that Virgo energy that you are very structured and precise and pay attention to the details, which I remember you said to me, like that is a big thing that's important to me.
Some call it type A. I call it detailed.
Yeah.
I call it Virgo. That's amazing. You just explained things about me that I actually hadn't known yet. So, wow. See how great this is? This is why I love astrology, you guys. So, I want to pivot a little bit and talk about energy because energy is huge. I mean, energy is everything. So I want to talk about how it works, and what you speak is, and what you think is ultimately what is going to manifest into your life.
So, manifesting, they have found now it's really from our subconscious. And I think that's the biggest thing is we can consciously think about things all the time of like, I'm going to make $1 million. I'm going to make $1 million. But in the subconscious, if you don't actually believe you're going to make $1 million, it's not going to come into your reality because your subconscious is 95% of your mind. Your conscious is only 5% now. So to think about, we have like 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day that are subconscious. And those are just replaying and replaying and replaying. So with the manifesting, you really need to be clear on what are my deep insecurities, which leads me to the moon. Because the moon is our subconscious, that's what it rules over. It rules over the deep waters of it. And so, with the moon cycle, on full moons, we have full access to our subconscious. That's why people are very emotional on full moons. The sun is facing off with the moon and it's lighting us up. And it's saying, in whatever sign it's in, the two signs that the sun and the moon are in, it's saying, pay attention to the shadows of that. What is holding you back? And energetically release those. And then on the new moon, it's a time that we get to birth something new. And so we get to write those manifestations in to our reality because the sun and the moon are going to be in the exact same sign. So the conscious mind and the subconscious mind are focusing on this area of our chart. You get to write down those manifestations. You get to sit with them. I would meditate on them. I would make sure you see them every day. And as the moon grows over the next 6 months into that full moon in that exact same sign, they will build into your life. But if you're not practicing the full moon releasing, I find that the new moon manifestations are very hard to do because, again, we manifest from the subconscious. So you need to clear that out. And if you follow every full moon of the year, you're always checking in with yourself of, ooh, what am I insecure about in this area of my chart? Ooh, what am I insecure about with this sign? What are my blocks? And it's just amazing time every month to check in with yourself of what I want with the new moons and what do I need to release with the full moons.
Absolutely. Wow. And so I noticed that when you were talking about manifesting as a whole, you mentioned write it down. How important is journaling when you are manifesting? Would you recommend doing it every time? Is there a specific way you should journal when you're trying to manifest? And can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. I believe writing it down is really important because it gets it from the mind into the physical reality, right? So I would say write it down every single time. Now, some people would say to do like the 3-6-9 method where you write it down like 3 times in the morning, 6 times in the afternoon, 9 times at night. I've never done that. That's a lot. But I do know that writing it down is more powerful because you're putting it into the reality, the hand eye or the mind and the hand coordination in a way. But what I do is I always follow the element that the new moon is in. So if it's in earth, I will make sure I'm outside and I am connected to earth when I'm writing them down. If it's a water, I'm showering and I'm thinking about it and I'm doing like a whole little ritual in my shower and then I get out and I write it down. If it's fire, I have candles all around me and then I write it down. And if it's air, I'll do breath work or I will have smoke cleansing around me. I just really try to incorporate the element.
That's amazing. I have never heard it put that way until just now, but makes so much sense. So we haven't talked about this yet. And so I want you to just explain for somebody listening that's like fire, earth, water, what? Like, how do I even know? So if you can explain that a little bit, like each sign and like how you know what's element it is.
So for fire signs are going to be Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. And they're fire because they are very passionate. They love activity. Just like how fire burns, it crackles, it pops, it's quick. And so that all those signs are really passionate signs. And then you're going to move into the air signs, which are going to be, well, actually, you're going to move into the earth signs, which are going to be Taurus, and then it's going to be Virgo, and then it's going to be Capricorn. And what makes earth signs are they are the stable ones. They are the ones that really create things into the 3D. They are the ones that are a little bit more grounded here on earth. They take less fire and emotions, and they're very more practical in a way. Okay, then we're going to go into the air signs, which is Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. These are the mental signs. Air loves to talk. It loves to really understand the breath and connect with people. So air sign people are a lot more heady, but they're also a lot more social because they want to exchange that air. Then we have the water, and water is going to be Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And they're the ones who really flow with life. They are the emotional babies, and they really are connected more to the physical body and the waves of it. And that's why they get very emotional in a way. But it's really beautiful, creative signs.
Moving on back, I guess going back a little bit to birth chart. And you'll understand this by looking at your birth chart if someone were to have theirs read, that everybody has a Saturn return. Everybody has 2 Saturn returns, correct?
Everyone will
at least 2.
At least. If you
okay.
Yeah. Depending on, everyone hopefully will have 2 Saturn
We hope
returns.
to have 2. Okay. So, can you explain how to know if or when you're going to go through your Saturn return? Like if you are in your Saturn return or when you're going to go through it, and what it is exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully everyone has like 3. So it happens every 28 to 30 years. So Saturn is the planet of responsibility. That's why people call it like Daddy Saturn of the zodiac, is because it is the planet that makes us mature in life. Without it, we wouldn't be able to like all follow the rules of the road in a way. That's kind of how I see Saturn. And so when you're born, it's at a specific place in your birth chart, and it takes, depending on when you're born and how fast Saturn moves, 27 to 30 years to get to the exact same spot of your birth chart, which means it's gone through every single sign, single planet, and every single house and made you mature in that area of life, basically. So when it comes back and it returns, it's saying like, congratulations, you've done it. Now time to heal again. So healing is all cyclical in astrology. And so that's why we have multiple Saturn returns. But because it's the planet of maturing, it doesn't let you get away with things. It makes sure you mature. And so during Saturn return sometimes, if your life is maybe not the space that your soul would like it to be, Saturn supports you on that and makes some adjustments during it. And that's why sometimes Saturn returns can have bad reps, that they're terrible and they're really hard. It's really because you're realigning your life and you're having to mature. And that can be hard for some people.
And this usually, so you said it between 28 and 30 years. So this is something that you could be in your Saturn return for 2 years, up to 2 years.
So Saturn will be in a sign for up to 3 years. So when it enters that sign, technically your Saturn return started. So for me, it started when I was 28 and it's going to last till I'm 30, but it's only going to be super, super intense when it comes to that exact degree in a way. So it's a whole time you're in your Saturn return, but the most intense is when it returns to that degree in the birth chart.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, it's maturing. So according to astrology, you're not technically mature until you're 30.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that I think is really big to know, because lots of people are making huge life decisions before they're 30.
A ton.
Yeah.
And, Saturn rules karma. And so sometimes that is your karma purpose, to get married before you're 30. And then potentially a lot of divorces happen during their Saturn return because that was your experience you needed to go through in a way. But yeah, lots of big decisions that happen beforehand, and it can lead you to ultimately your life path in the end.
Wow. So if you're between the ages of 28 and 30, call Lauren, because she will help you navigate this, because I personally am in my Saturn return right now, and woo, I didn't know I was going to be ready to get to 30, but I think I'm ready to get to 30 now.
I love it.
Considering how this has been so far.
And, Saturn rules your career too, right? So big changes in careers usually happen as well, and promotions and things like that, or changes like for you. So yeah, it can be a lot.
Yeah. So looking back, after you turn 30 and go through all this, you'll probably look back and be like, wow, I'm really glad that happened. So that's awesome.
And like 3 years after your return is integration years. So just be slow with yourself. If it's been a lot, the next 3 years is implementing and learning still, but you'll feel more confident.
Yeah. Getting comfortable with all the newness. I'm sure that that it's bringing in. And
Absolutely. And it has to do with your house as well. So in astrology, the houses are where energy is expressed, the planets are what's being expressed, and the signs is how it's being expressed. So for your Saturn return, you really need to take into account what house is it in. So that's where is this happening? Maturing, we know that, karma, careers, that's all that Saturn rules, and then the energy of it. So if you're in Pisces, this is really around your spiritual development right now too.
Yeah, I feel that because mine is in Pisces. So I want to talk about part of your practice, and that is you work with couples. So kind of a couple things here. I want to talk about how you work with your couples in terms of helping them with compatibility, how to work together on things based on their birth chart. And then I also want to talk about a lot of people want to know, a lot of people that are single want to know kind of like, where am I meeting my partner? When am I going to meet the love of my life? Like how, where, what, when? And as far as I know, your birth chart can give you a little insight on that. Is that correct? Or
it can.
Okay.
It definitely can.
Okay.
Yes. So relationship astrology, I come from the lens of I'm not a hard and fast, you are compatible and you are not compatible. I think people can work together for sure. Sometimes I see couples that are not compatible in the basic astrology lens, but they figure it out. And part of their journey together is figuring that out. So, how I use astrology with couples is I pull up both of their charts. And I get to know one person's energy. Are they really watery? Are they earthy? Are they air? Are they fire, right? What is their modes? We haven't gone into this, but it's cardinal, fixed, mutable. It's kind of like, are you easygoing? Are you more stubborn? Are you more impulsive? The leader. So I kind of get to know their energy as the basic human. And then I get to know their partners. And specifically in relationships, which Venus and Mars are the planets. And so if you're looking at compatibility, do not look to the sun, look to the Venus and Mars signs.
I know everybody looks to the sun. I'm like, if that were the case, I don't know that I would be married to my husband because we're two Leos. So I don't know how how that would work out if you're going off of like a traditional horoscope app. It would tell you no.
Right. And that's what couples will say. They'll be like, oh my gosh, I just looked up a co-star. I'm not compatible. And I'm like, no, it's okay. You are, because look at everything else in your chart that's working together. So you want to look to Venus and Mars, and those are the relationship planets. Mars is how we give love. Venus is how we receive love. So it's kind of like Venus is your love language. And so if you can learn each other's love languages, then you'll be able to function well as a couple. If you can learn each other's sun, like you're both Leo, then you both need to be hyping each other up. You got to hype those egos. And
Yes.
you just learn each other's energy. And that's how I really explain it to the couples, and then they can get activities that two signs like to do. So if you have two Venus signs in air, then you just want to talk all night long. So getting fun cards and having those discussions. But if you are fire, you want to go do activities. You want to try new things. So using the elements, I think, is the best way to look at compatibility. And I think when people say, like, can your chart tell you your husband or wife or your partner when they're going to come in? How I look at it is windows of opportunity. So there are things called transits, and that's when you have your natal birth chart and the stars above you are rotating around your chart. And this is what astrology is. They push and they pull you with your energy, and that's why sometimes fated events happen depending on where the stars are based off your own birth chart. And so if someone has a lot of energy in the dating houses, the marriage houses, 5, 7, 8, those are the houses that are really around relationships. If they have a lot of planets transiting those houses, I'm like, that's an amazing time to put yourself out there if you're single. Doesn't mean you won't meet someone if you don't have planets there. It just means it's a really good time to meet someone. And then Jupiter, if you are attracted to males, that could represent your husband, the energy that's going to be around that person. And then Venus, if you're attracted to females, could represent the wife. But doesn't have to be that sign. It just has to be that energy.
Right. And so I have seen a million TikToks that talk about, like you said, the Jupiter and what house it's in. And then that can tell you where or how you're going to meet them. So like, for instance, I think when I looked mine up, it was very much like childhood. Like, so how accurate is that, do you think? So because I want to say it was in like I don't even remember what house.
It's in your third house.
Okay, yes. I forgot you have my chart. So I'm like, you know more about me than I know about me.
Actually, I was like, ooh.
So yeah. Right. You just tell me about me, Lauren, okay?
Well, the third house, every house has multiple meanings. So the third house could technically be technology. It could technically be communication. It could be through family members. It could be through childhood, right? There's a lot of different avenues. So how did you meet your husband?
Through mutual friends. We were kids too. I mean, I was a kid, kind of. So we were young.
Yeah, absolutely. Because third house is community. It takes a village to raise people. So it's your aunts, your uncles, your siblings. It's that. So that would make a lot of sense because your Jupiter is there. And is your husband someone that is deeply intuitive, kind of mysterious, has a strong energy to them? A lot of depth to them.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, he's kind of like a hard nut to crack if you don't know him.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that is why it's in Scorpio. Because those are
okay. There we have it.
Your husband.
Wow. There you are, Belle.
Shout out.
Yes. So obviously you have been telling me about little things in my chart, like we just discussed. So I want to loop back to the birth chart and having an astrologer read it for you. And if you can explain a little bit of like why that's so beneficial.
Yeah, I think it's beneficial to have an astrologer read it because they've been trained to understand the depths of how the birth chart's going to go. So the health of the planets, aspects, are planets talking to one another. And so if you just Google Jupiter in Pisces, it's only going to give you the exact definition of that energy. But if your Jupiter's talking to Saturn and your sun and it's on your Mars, it is so different. And so to have a trained professional explain it to you that way, you then understand the little nuggets and can go from there. So it kind of sets you up for more understanding you. Because sometimes people say, I read it, it doesn't relate to me. And it's like, well, it's because there's so much more in your chart. That's why it's not relating to you than just a Leo sun.
Yes. Yeah, because I started off, like I told you, my mom really brought astrology into my life young, and so it's kind of always been there. But I kind of started off with like apps, and I feel like they just give you a very basic idea and explanation of your chart in general. So I definitely can see where like when I had mine read by an astrologer, I was like, whoa, okay, like this makes so much sense now, because before I was like staring at it like, okay, well, I have Libra and Venus, and I guess I like the way things look, and just little things like that, but like I was not understanding it as a whole. So yes, 100% I can see that that's huge.
Yeah, and I think that astrology is left brain for sure. It's technical, it's math, it's science, all that stuff. Now we have technology for all of that, which is amazing. But it's also right brain. It's so intuitive. And that's how I was trained by my mentor. She really brings in the feminine because someone could have the same chart, but it's going to express differently. And so to sit with someone, you dig into your intuition, and that's how it guides your reading as well. And so it can be really beautiful when it's an astrologer who has learned how to use left and right brain in readings.
Yes. And so I know obviously you want to be read by an astrologer. That's going to be your biggest benefit. But for someone who is maybe listening and has never really gotten into astrology, and they're kind of like, okay, maybe I want to dabble in this a little bit, but aren't necessarily at the point where they're like, I'm going to reach out and have an astrologer read my chart. Maybe they just want to kind of look at it a little bit, get a feel for it. Where is the best way that they can do that? Is there like an app that you recommend, a website, or something that can just give them the basics, and then we'll hopefully promote them to wanting to reach out to you and have you explain it to them?
Yeah, definitely. I use time passages for an app. Now, it is a little bit more advanced, but it can give you really good information if you get through the app. Like the app itself can be a little bit confusing. I find it way more accurate than other apps out there. Also, if you want to spend a little bit of money, the Chani app is amazing as well, but it does cost money. And then online, I would say advancedastrology.com. You can type in advancedastrology.com, go to it and look up your sun, your moon, your lunar nodes, and they just give an amazing description. It's very in-depth. It's all free. And every time I had a question when I was learning it and I didn't have access to my mentor or teacher, I went there and it always resonated with every single one of my teachers, what they said. So I really love that website as well.
Yes. And knowing your birth time is huge, right? Like that is kind of like a major thing. Yeah. And so I just want to give everybody a little tip is my husband didn't know his birth time. And so he actually submitted a form, I think, to get his birth certificate. Or it wasn't, he has a birth certificate. It was like a more detailed one from the hospital that had the time of his birth on there. So if you're somebody that doesn't know your birth time, you can actually get that from submitting a form. I wish I had more info, but he did it somehow online. He was able to get on like a government website and get it figured out. So if you need that, because I know a lot of people are like, I don't know my birth time.
And don't always rely on your parents, because I have literally got clients who are like, oh my God, they lied. I was like, well, they're giving birth. So
yeah. Well, luckily my mom's a witch and she remembered all three of ours. So
I love that. You're so lucky.
I want to pivot a little bit and talk about something else that can really give you guidance and soul purpose and all the things. And that is human design. And I want you to just give us kind of an overview of that, and when you understand it, how it can benefit you.
I just want to start off. I am not a human design expert. So if you were listening and you are, shout out. It's very complicated. I just want to say that I'm not an expert, but I have had readings and I've done my own research. So from what I understand, it is kind of like astrology, where it is based off of your exact time of birth, location, and birthday. So you do need that information and you type it in. Now, it shows you like a body graph of yourself, and it actually has to do with the planets, but also the chakras. So it describes your own unique energy. What chakras are overactive? What is underactive? Things like that. And so it tells you how to use your energy, how to make decisions, what you're like in relationships. It's a little bit more masculine than astrology. Astrology is going to be very interpretive, and there's a high side and there's a low side. And like I said, intuitive. Human design is, this is what it is. This is what it means. And there's no interpretation, if that makes sense. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I like that. It kind of gives you more concrete. And so we have strategies like energy types. I'm a manifesting generator. When I found out that I'm someone who loves to multitask, which I do, and I will always be able to, and people are like, you're going to burn out and you can't do that. And they kind of judge me a lot. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. It's because I'm a manifesting generator. So now I feel more empowered to be like, no, I know my energy. And there's other things like your strategy. And this is how you really make decisions. Well, for me, and again, I only know my stuff, but for me, it's based off of my sacral chakra. I have to fully feel magnetized to a decision, and the universe is going to present it. So for example, when you reached out to me about this, and then someone else reached out to me about a podcast, even though I always wanted to start my own podcast, the energy wasn't there. I wasn't recording. I wasn't doing it. I had everything for it. But that same day you reached out and someone else talked to me about a podcast, and all of a sudden the energy's flowing. And so the universe finally said, it's time. And so when I learned how to move with my specific energy and then also understand the cues for myself, it's really changed how I go about my own career.
Wow. I love that. I love it so much. All of it. This stuff lights me up. So that must be somewhere in my chart too, because I'm all about it.
Absolutely. And I think in this day and age, we have access to it all. So there's really no more excuse not to make the life you want to make, because you can learn yourself.
Absolutely. And yeah, like you said, there's so many resources and things out there. Like, learn yourself. Yes. It's so huge and so beneficial. Like, I am very new to like really diving deep into it. I would say it kind of started for me in like 2021, where I really started diving into astrology and a little bit of human design. I'm like you, I'm not an expert, but numerology, all the little things. And just in these 2 years, I feel like I have had so much soul growth just because of those things. So
it's
huge.
Like finding yourself again. I think that was the biggest thing with my first astrology reading. I was like, I remember who I am. Like I'm empowered
Yes.
to be who I am. And that's so exciting.
Oh my God, so true. It's like, hi, Haley, meet Haley.
Yeah.
Like, great. Welcome back.
Absolutely. The battle of the ego versus the soul.
Oh, yes. Yes. And so like I said, found you on TikTok. You share so much information. I feel like we have covered a quarter of the information that you share on social media, which I love. And so if you can share with people, like, how do they find you on social media? What's the best platforms to find you and what your handles are?
Yeah. Definitely find me on TikTok. My handle is The Lunar Child. And then my website to sign up for any readings with me or astrology therapy is thelunarchild.com. And then my Instagram is The Lunar Child Healing. And I'll be starting my own podcast. Will be launched by
Yes.
now. And so
It's called, can we say what it's called?
Of course. Yeah. It's
Okay.
out
Oh,
there.
I guess because you posted it. Karma is Calling. I love that name.
Yeah.
So that's your new podcast. And when is it going to launch?
My first episode's launching January 11th on the new moon in Capricorn.
I love that. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Congrats. And that's 111.
I know.
Right? Is
when
that-
I realized that,
yeah.
I was like, no, I didn't even try for that. I just knew the new moon in Capricorn has to do with my career, and Sagittarius had to do with my podcast. So that was like the trailer was released then, and then the next cycle. That's what I'm saying.
Congratulations. I'm so, because I know when we first got in touch with each other, you were like, I've been wanting to do this. And I feel like this is a sign. And I'm like, yes. And then it's so awesome to hear that, like, we have a name. We have a name. We have a launch date. Like, that's amazing.
Yes,
so
there's a
congratulations.
trailer. Thank you so much. It's really exciting. Yeah.
And then also on top of that, of course, you have your coaching and therapy practice, which, I mean, if you guys loved any part of this podcast, you're going to love Lauren and her practice. So definitely get on her website. And you also do monthly astrology consults too.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I do monthly readings so you understand where's the new moon happening for you and where's the full moon happening for you. So you can really understand what your energy is for the month ahead so you can manifest with the moon. And so then we'll go into, well, you have these planets, so this means this much for you, or it's not as important for you, so focus on these things. So we really get to go month by month so you are flowing with the energy. And I think that's the biggest thing with manifesting that I didn't say is when you're manifesting with the moon, you are looking at the energy that the sign that the moon is in. So you're working with the energy, not against it, right? So that's why it's helpful to be like, these are the areas. And once a year, you get to manifest in that area. And of course, you can at all times, but it just helps.
Yes. Yeah. I love it because it seems like it's very guidance, like monthly guidance every month. You're getting a dose of it. So that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, I've loved this episode so much. Thank you for coming on and just sharing your knowledge. And I'm so excited for your podcast. I cannot wait to listen. It's going in my calendar right after this 111 for the launch date. And I can't wait to listen and just keep learning from you because I've already gained so much. And yeah, I'm excited to see where you go.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so exciting. I am such a high energy person, so you probably felt that, but I'm like geeking out right now. So thank you.
Yes. Well, I love it. Thank you. As always, I appreciate you all so much for listening. My goal is for these episodes to at least help one person in some aspect of their life. So if you like what you hear, don't forget to follow, like, subscribe to the show, as well as follow us on social media at Inside Voice Pod. Thanks.